You are about to enter. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Open your mind. Open your mind. Open your hearts. It is time to reveal. Time to unlock. Time to listen and hear the truth. The secret mysteries, hidden agendas, dark cabals, all come to light. Behold, hot comfort. My name is Salim Siddiqui, and this is the strangest story you have ever heard.
Well, of course, that is the theme music from a great HBO show titled Rome, of course, where you see some of the strange ritual practices performed by the actors in great stunning fashion. The concept of ancient gods, the concept that Romans believed that those who were less than them were by their very nature slaves. And that the Roman Empire spread out through the earth, trying to take over, as history depicts, one of the greatest, most modern, epic empires of all time. Of course, those who don't pay attention to their history would have you believe that the last great empire and the largest spanning empire and the longest lasting empire on this earth was Rome. Those of you who are Muslim know that that is not true. Yet, of course, the Holy Roman Empire continues on, as we know, in today's modern age, through the guise of, yes, the Pope and the Vatican, right? The concept that the dark side is controlling. And so these ancient wars have been going on for a long, long time. The idea amongst most Christians that the Catholic Church has been involved in dark practices, pagan practices, the changing of ancient icons to modern icons, and continuing the spread of graven images, and what many Unitarians or Ethiopian Christians, and definitely the Jews, would never condone, right? The concepts of some of the strange blood rituals and the weird practices related to sex and abstinence, and even the strange dark practices related to homosexuality, and what even goes on today in the current church with ideas of abusing young children or virgins or young boys in an attempt to gain an access to the darkness or the supernatural. The idea that these practices go on and have been covered up by the church is nothing new. Joseph Ratzinger, now known to many as Benedict, was the one in charge of the investigations under the previous John Paul, and was also known to be involved with the Nazis and the occult from the time of the Great World Wars. And so we're talking about the concept of prophecy, and that the Pope has removed himself from his chair, has abdicated the throne, not in 600 years, 700 years is something so ludicrous and wild happened, brothers and sisters. But those of you who are paying attention now know the black smoke is flowing, and the cardinals' conclave are gathering to see who will be the next leader, who will be the next ruler, who will take the chair. It reminds me of a caller who called a few weeks ago talking about trying to reach out to the Catholic Church and express the time for change and being rebuffed and rejected. That the time for change is upon us. And I mentioned before that our feelings, our vibrations, our understanding of the way we see things and how we feel about it is so different than others, but what we have to deal with is time. It was long, long ago, in the 1100s, when the mysteries and secrets of the Romans had spread throughout all the lands, and the Catholic Church had begun to spread all over the known world at that time. There in the Highlands, brothers and sisters, Scotland, Ireland, and Britannia, where the mysteries of the Lodge and the Brotherhood, and the Romans from the time of the Crusades and Conquest, and perhaps even the secret 9th Legion or the 11th Legion, I'm sure one of you will check on me, talking about mysteries of the secret spreading of the Golden Eagle to the lands of Arthur and Merlin, the lands of England, where there an Irish archbishop, Saint Malachi, makes his way in the pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Of course, the battle from the Crusades has been about Jerusalem. The battle between today's light and dark is about Jerusalem. The control of the Vatican and the current Zionist state is about Jerusalem. The war in Syria is about Jerusalem. The control in Saudi Arabia and the other dictatorial regimes is about Jerusalem. St. Malachi is traveling to Jerusalem. He's there to meet the Pope. And on his way out from the holy city of the Vatican, after meeting the Pope and performing the ritual greetings, and he's been given titles and honors, he begins to have a prophecy. And during that vision or state of being transformed, he writes down from his time in 1139, 112 popes. Of course, he gives them their titles, or what we would, in Arabic would call a kunya, or a nickname. And he names 112 popes until the very final pope. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the prophecies of St. Malachi, it's known as the prophecy of the popes, that there will be 112 popes. And those of you who have been paying attention, Pope Benedict Joseph Ratzinger was number 111. And those paying attention to the lore and the mysteries of the Catholic Church know that the next pope, some of them believe, is the final pope. And the Catholics who know this doctrine, and it's been widely printed for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and well known amongst the believers. Now, after naming some of the popes, for example, John Paul I, he was called, the phrase, from the midst of the moon. And we know his reign began in 78, and he started his reign with the moon half full and lasted only one moon, for example. So he was one of the shortest reign. Celestine II, the Pope, was from a castle on the Tiber, and he was known, his name was Guido de Castillo of the castle, you know. So some of the descriptions have been pretty interesting. Now, for those who are paying attention to the most recent John Paul II, his expression in the prophecy of the popes is laboris solis, or from the labor of the sun, meaning a solar eclipse. And as it turned out, John Paul II was the only known pope to be born on the day of a solar eclipse, and he was also buried on the day of a solar eclipse. And for those of you paying attention to the last pope before this pope, of course the sign was for the sun, right? Now this pope, who is Benedict the 16th, I believe, he was titled Glory of the Olive. Now, of course, the olive is the symbol for the Benedictine order, but it also represents a time when the people of the olive will rise, or the people of the olive skin. Now, the olive and the olive skin have always been known to be the Arabs, my brothers and sisters, and so what we have is the spring of the Arabs, right? The glory or the rising of the Arabs. Now, according to Malachi, after Benedict the 16th, or the glory of the olives, the final pope, the 112th pope, is a warning of the end times or the apocalypse. In the extreme persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, Petrus Romanus, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations. And when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the terrible judge will judge his people. The end. Well, for those who've looked at the prophecy of the popes, we know that each of the popes is written with a sign and a prophecy next to him, a one-liner next to each of the 111, until we get to Petrus Romanus, where Malachi, St. Malachi, in his prophecy, wrote out a whole paragraph talking about the persecution of the Holy Roman Church. That Peter, now Peter could mean Petrus, it could mean the rock, it could mean those taking on the chair or the command authority of St. Peter, the original Roman Church. It could also mean, brothers and sisters, the rock or the mud. People think that might have something to do with there finally being a black cardinal or bishop being raised to pope. People think that it's possibly going to be an Italian or somebody from Rome, since the attribute is the Roman or Romanus. But it could also mean somebody who performs ancient Roman rituals. That this final pope, Peter, will pasture his sheep, the concept of kullukum ra'i, through the tribulations or the trials, that every one of you is a shepherd. And when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed. We're talking about Rome or Italy or the Vatican, the city of 7 hills. There's a 7 reference for those of you who are members of the site and have studied the 7 series. And that the terrible judge will judge his people. Now, this is one of the concepts I talked about recently when I was referring to the Americans and understanding the Constitution of their founding fathers. And now talking about the Romans, whether we're talking about Christ, the return of Jesus the Messiah, judging his people who claim to be Christian, who are here in the final tribulation, or those in the spiritual realms who have ascended or gone on and now will oversee their brethren in their path of ascension. And St. Malachi goes on to say the end at the completion of this. The idea that Rome is going to be destroyed. The destruction of Rome and the end of the church. The idea that all of this is coming to an end and that the cycle is finishing. The idea that the changes in the chair and the command structure are now becoming apparent. That those of you who are paying attention to the signs and the seals and the symbols and the stories, of course, we've been waiting for news and declarations and disclosures. But at the same time, you know, for that to occur, the right people have to be put in the right positions. And the chairs are changing all over the earth. and altering themselves. We talked about this related in the beginning of the episode to the president, and talked about the fact that he was going to be having a second term, and that those who were expecting the signs and the symbols of chaos and destruction and the removal of Barack Obama were behind the ball, meaning those Americans who on the right wing think that Barack Obama is part of the conspiracy, even though I condemn him for taking on some of the right wing attitudes in the war on terror. He's still living a human response in a human world as a human president dealing with what he perceives as a real human threat. And those of you who are Muslim now, those of them who are not Muslim, they're so afraid of us. I don't know why. They're so afraid of us. But they're so afraid of us. They're so afraid of us that they'll send drones and bomb us and kill us. And this has been the president's response. But we're coming to a time of change where the overall pattern of things is becoming so different that people are going to have to see a new alternative. They're going to have to decide consciously to do something else. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek protection from Satan, the accursed one. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Creator, the most beneficent, the merciful. Alif Lam Mim. غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ. Alif Lam Mim. Of course, we've talked in the past about the sounds and vibration of the word. The concept that the word and the spoken word is what leads to understanding that by sharing the word and the verse and the story, you enlighten others, you enlighten yourself, you change the vibration of those around you by kalimat tayyib, right? By a good word, by saying nice things. Alif Lam Mim. The Roman Empire has been defeated. In a land close by, but they, even after this defeat of theirs, will soon be victorious. Within a few years, with God in the decision, in the past and in the future, on that day shall the believers rejoice. With the help of God, He helps whom He will, and He is exalted in might, most merciful. It is the promise of God, never does God depart from His promise, but most men understand not. They know but the outer things in the life of this world, but of the end of things they are heedless. Do they not reflect in their own minds? Not but for the just ends and for a term appointed did God create the heavens and the earth and all between them. Yet are there truly many among men who deny the meeting with their Lord or the resurrection. Do they not travel throughout the earth and see what was the end of those before them? They were superior to them in strength, and they tilled the soil and populated it in greater numbers than you have done. There came to them their apostles at their time with clear signs, which they then rejected to their own destruction. It was not God who wronged them, but they wronged their own souls. In the long run, evil in the extreme will be the end of those who do evil, for that they rejected the signs of God and held them up to ridicule. Of course, those are the first 10 verses of the chapter called Rome, the chapter in the Holy Quran dealing with the Roman Empire. Now, at the time of the early Muslims, the Roman Empire was under attack by the Persians, and Jerusalem had been lost. You see, the Romans lost Jerusalem to the Persians, and other nations. It wasn't until later on when the Muslims came and took over the land once again that it became safe for Jews and Christians to travel. In the war and the battle that is now called Palestine, we must now understand that the Muslims are not the enemy. The Muslims are those who have always been on the side of the one true God. Now, there's many in the Christian faith who are now being taught by their pastors and their priests and their preachers that there are more than one God, right? The Christians are preaching polytheistic beliefs to their own monotheistic followers. They're trying to make you believe that the Muslims believe in a different creator than you. Either there is one God or there isn't. If you believe there is one Lord, one creator, one divine supreme Lord, then there is one. Whether you call yourself a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim, it doesn't change the fact that there's still only one God. So the idea that Christians go around spreading Muslims believing in a different God, that the term Allah in Arabic for the divine architect, the creator of you and me, the earth, the sun, and the moon, and the signs that we have been narrating, and the cycle of time, and fate in and of itself by your very being and my very being. The idea that that is someone other than the one true God is silly. And for Christians to say, no, Allah is some moon god or some other pagan god, and that the Muslims don't believe in the one true creator, just is pure ignorance and lack of understanding.
You are listening to Hot Conflict Radio. Calling live every Thursday night, midnight, 12 a.m. Eastern. Call in to get your questions and comments live on the air. Dial into the show by phone 760-825-0949. You can dial in from the site on Blog Talk Radio using Skype or through a regular phone calling in at 760-825-0949. That's 760-825-0949. Get your questions and comments live on the air, talking about the weird and the wild, the strange and the supernatural. Things that go bump in the night. Get on hotconflict.com.